serious, what are your thoughts on euthanasia, right to die? I believe that it should be a decision that's honored. I just watched my sister's cat suffer through breast cancer. At the end, she no longer purred, was on strong painkillers and slept pretty much 24/7, and had a golf ball-sized tumor on her breast that was ulcerated and infected. We had to redress the wound twice a day and she hated it. She was in pain, but she died surrounded by people she loved, petting her and sweetly talking to her and telling her how much she was loved. If this cat were a human, she would still be alive and in constant pain. You wouldn't do that to grandma, would you? I'm for it, but only in extreme circumstances. I've been in a position where the pain is so bad that death actually seems like a better idea. Thankfully, despite being in pain for the majority of my life, I've only been in that extreme position for a few days at a time. However, I know some people who live with that month after month or year after year. Cheers, there are some restrictions. Talking to the right people. Making sure that it's a chronic thing. This sort of checklist, I suppose. With no hope of recovery. Then it should definitely be an option. So much would have to change to boost morale for this to ever be an option. The lawmakers would first have to be convinced people actually want to exist. Our well-beings would need to be accommodated for adequately. Humans inherently take the easiest road to rest. Most people I have ever asked answer they have never put much thought into their desire to exist. Myself, every day on multiple occasions, good or bad. Giving the choice to opt out would open that question to general society. Who knows what the consensus would be? I've always said I'll know for sure by 40. It should be a basic human right. My mother was sick with a degenerative neural disease. It's incurable and absolutely will kill you. Generally takes 6-7 years. At the end, your brain essentially becomes mush and you end up being unable to speak, move, remember or even eat. Thankfully, my mother didn't have to deal with that, as it also randomly causes sudden unrecoverable heart failure. If we had gotten to the part where the brain is essentially mush, I'd have probably gone to jail for helping my mother keep her dignity and assisting her go out on her own terms. Own life, and other people have a full right to voluntarily assist them in doing so, as long as they all put an appropriate effort into avoiding the unnecessary negative impact on other people's lives. Meaning they should not euthanize themselves or assist anyone willing to do that in front of anyone who may be unwilling to witness it. Every human being has the fundamental human right to determine the time of their death. But I'm not comfortable involving doctors in the process. If it were its own profession or something, I would have no issue. But I think medicalizing it carries far too much risk. That said, if there's good proof like a recorded statement or witnesses, I'm fine with decriminalizing assisted suicide, as well as creating a legal framework that doesn't involve licensed doctors. The danger of what can happen when do no harm is not sacrosanct, is too frightening to allow. I think it devalues life. Euthanasia becomes an option. Healthcare will take a very dark turn. Insurance companies and for-profit hospitals will select the euthanasia option over lengthy and costly treatments every single time. If we legalize euthanasia, we are in every sense of the word killing ourselves. If you want the choice to fight for your life in the future, and you will not support euthanasia, it's not even outside the realm of possibility that one day we see a future and no one dies naturally. I don't want that for future generations. Very pro if someone is in pain or has an incurable disorder that will only get worse as they get old. I say they have the right to go out on their own terms. None of us asked to be here, and many suffer without help. I say it's my choice when I go, especially if I have something that can't be cured and will only get worse over time. To the right to life is out there who will probably read this all the wrong way. When I value my life and live each day the best I can. To this is not, I repeat, not a cry for help. 3. No one should be made to suffer. After it was attempted, within reasonable means, to cure or help them, and that attempt was deemed unsuccessful, and also when suffering person kept their decision for a sensible amount of time. It's worst when the one suffering has no option at all and is just desperate enough that her death will also hurt others. It should not be a taboo. I hope much can change in that regard in future. generally in favor of the option. But it also requires changes and improvements to other systems, mental health care and social safety nets that would ideally help keep at least some of those people from the brink, and would also help prevent other people from hitting that point in the first place. All people should have access to safe, merciful end-of-life services over the age of 18. Without any preconsiderations. You should be allowed to walk into a clinic right now and be euthanized because it's Tuesday, and you don't like how the air is touching your arm. Fuck other people's bullshit conditions. You have to live your life. And you have to die your death, not them. There can be no more intrusive form of fascism than telling people they're not allowed to administrate their life and death as they see fit. I'm young, that have seen some horrible shit and dealt with some horrible shit happening to people I love. Very much for it. How can you have a right to life but not death? I think it should be discouraged heavily for mental health reasons, and counseling should happen. That sick people shouldn't have to suffer because we want them around. We treat our animals better than a lot of people. If they don't want to live through their body or mind failing, they shouldn't have to, and we should respect their choices. If one of sound mind and misfortunate outlook comes to that conclusion of their own volition, I see no reason to stop them. Frankly, I feel more pro this than I do pro euthanasia of pets. We don't know what pets are thinking. We just take control of the choice for them. We aren't even sure of their awareness and cognizant of their own being. We know that a person is aware, informed, and can make judgments of their options. Their destiny should be their own, including the decision to conclude it. I think that in the US, most healthcare quietly looks the other way when physicians and families intentionally overdose people as palliative care. So, even if we don't have legal euthanasia, we have it in fact, is more direct than we would like to admit, and that it will result in some ugly government incentives around the provision of care and promotion of euthanasia in circumstances where it isn't warranted. It is insane to me we don't allow it at minimum for the elderly and already dying. There are people out there suffering so much, months or years of agony, and we won't let them just peacefully slip away when they and their family all want it to stop the pain. Not to mention how aged care for huge cost on everyone. Maybe our groceries and housing wouldn't be half as shitty if we weren't spending $200,000 a year keeping each dying person alive who doesn't even want to live. We euthanize animals when it's time. We're kinder to them than to those we love. I will never understand why our society values suffering and agony over a peaceful end. God wills it, your life belongs to Him. Fine. Let whoever believes that die in agonizing, prolonged death or watch their loved ones do it. If that's what they choose, let the rest of us who have compassion and believe differently go gently. And let those we love do the same if that's what they choose to do. I have lifelong chronic pain that cannot be cured nor remedied with medication. It's not terminal, meaning I won't actually die from it, but I will continue to suffer for the rest of my natural life. Yes, I believe right to die is a fundamental right. I believe denying this right is deliberately cruel. People with my condition will always be swept under the rug because it's not considered degenerative or life-threatening, and the stigma from doctors continues to persist. I believe it should be legal. I watched one of my brothers and my father die slow and painful deaths from cancer within 18 months of each other. Both of them asked me to kill them with morphine, my brother approximately 2 weeks before he passed, and my father repeatedly about a week before he passed, before he became comatose. I strongly feel they should have had a choice and been able to go on their own terms without suffering through those excruciating last days. Depends on someone's situation. I think if someone is in a lot of pain, they should be allowed to have that choice. However, as my country of America already has a huge suicide problem, therapy should be the solution, not letting more people die from their temporary wishes of suicide. Regardless of your opinion, though, euthanasia should be scheduled, at the very least, a week in advance. People shouldn't be able to take any life based on a whim, not even their own. As a nurse at a level 1 trauma center, I'm a big supporter. I fully support dying with dignity for people who are terminally ill or living with chronic pain and illness. That being said, I do not support it for people with mental illness. I have SND myself, so I can sympathize with SI, but a depressive or manic episode is not the place, time, or situation for a patient to make such a permanent decision. That would be incredibly irresponsible and unethical. I'm for it with a few stipulations. If you're physically terminally ill, you should have the right to choose a more peaceful, orderly, and dignified end. Settle your affairs, say your goodbyes, and go under more peaceful circumstances instead of waiting around to suffer until the end. If you're suffering greatly due to some mental illness, you should have the option, but only after it's medically agreed that all other attempts at treatment have failed. I absolutely support it. When my pets' bodies are failing, I can make the call to end their suffering peacefully. When my father's body was failing and his mind was gone, we had no option but to remove sustenance, so that he essentially dehydrated, starved to death. My pets have a better death than my father. Convicted murderers have a better death than my father. When my body is failing, I want the option to pass peacefully, without any more suffering.